Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively merging a 23-year sports brand now with our new brand, Baltimore Positive, bringing the Don Moeller influence in, talking some politics, some election palooza, and certainly some governmental and educational issues, and mixing that with sports. No better time to do that than when the Baltimore Ravens are the premier team in the National Football League, but the Kansas City Chiefs will argue that on Monday night. Adam Teicher's been covering the Chiefs for forever and a day, and he finally got to write a book, and I get to bring him on Zoom, and he can show me his book on Patrick Mahomes. You won a championship, Teicher. What's going on? You're not even coming to town, so I can buy you a crab cake or a beer or anything.
I would love nothing more than for you to buy me a crab cake and a beer, but I am not traveling right now. A lot of people aren't, so we're doing it from home. But it's not the same experience. And what a game that's going to be on Monday night, and to be a part of it would be something special.
Give me your take on watching games on TV, and give everyone your background in your own words. Because I wrote a piece this week. I went to Houston. I've missed 7 Ravens games in their history.
Is that right?
And the 4 of them were my wife had cancer. I missed a game in Buffalo last year. I missed the Cincinnati game sick, and I missed the Jacksonville game sick about 20 years ago. So I haven't missed a whole lot of games. And so staying home and watching a Ravens game on TV is something that only happens in week 16 in a year when they're 3-13 or something, which doesn't happen often. It was very weird for me to be at home, and it felt very, very normal for me to be there despite the fact that there was nobody else there.
Yeah, it was. It's an unbelievable experience for those of us who are used to being at the games. I've covered the Chiefs since 1993, so I missed a couple games around the time our daughter was born. They had a game in Seattle right before when my wife was due, and we didn't want the trouble coming back from there, so I stayed home. And I missed the game after they played in Miami. But other than that, until last weekend's game in LA, I've been at every regular season and playoff games for the Chiefs for whatever that is, 27, 28 years. So it's a different experience. I got to tell you, I don't like it. I like seeing the sidelines and being a part of it that way, talking to people in the locker room after the games, talking to people on the field before the games.
Going to the game in Houston made me really want to be at the game. I didn't miss it last week. The Browns game, I felt like, well, it's COVID and it is what it is. They let me in last week. And now I want to be back in next Monday night. I don't want to watch it on TV. I really don't.
Yeah, it's a different experience, and it's not as good, frankly. But it's the world we're living in right now. So what are you going to do, right?
Well, I guess what we're going to do is cover these teams and watch this game and probably talk about the level of play and the quality in the league. I mean, you've covered the league a long time before the Ravens even existed. Yeah. And I think the level of play we've seen the last 2 weeks, it really speaks to the professionalism that I think runs through a lot of these organizations. Not everywhere, right? I mean, they're not all perfect. I have a baseball team here in Baltimore. I get it. But for the most part, it's been good competitive football.
All right, I got you back.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
No, I said it's been good competitive football.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. And, I expected nothing less than Andy Reid, the Chiefs coming out and playing well to start the season. I did get to see their training camp. The Chiefs are an amazing machine. And I have a sense it's the same way with the Ravens with John Harbaugh as well. But the Chiefs just get in good work. There's no extracurriculars at training camp practice for the Chiefs. They don't fight. They don't stand around goofing off. They don't waste their time. They just practice, and they get in good work. And this is Andy Reid's 8th season with the Chiefs. They have started off 1 year they start off 9-0. 1 year they start off twice they start off 5-0, and once they started 4-0. That's not coincidence. I mean, they are ready to go when the season starts. And this year apparently is no different. Now, I can't tell you they're going to be 3-0 this year. They may well be 2-1 after Monday night's game. But that's not because they goofed off in training camp or didn't get good work in. I mean, I feel like Reid had his eye on the prize from the very start here. And I feel like that's why the Chiefs are off to a good start this year.
Well, I want to give you a chance to plug your book because I think the book is the story. I mean, the questions I'm going to be asking you about, like, how well did you know Andy Reid when he was in Philadelphia? And, John Harbaugh comes here, and it's sort of the same sort of family tree. I'm sure the way the building is run at Owings Mills, you would be familiar with it,
I probably would.
But Andy gets hired, And, that organization, a lot of different ways. Look, I was out there the day that the planes were flying around, and Scott Pioli, and the quarterback got cheered when he got injured, Matt Castle.
Yeah.
I remember, the darkness of that. I mean, you had just an incident in the parking lot that that we don't even talk about, right? I mean, so for that organization to finally have a parade, and I know it came after the Royals parade for the community. But nonetheless, I mean, that's 50 years those fans had waited there. I felt good for you and for everybody associated with the organization when I was getting out of the parking lot down at Hard Rock before the plague set in.
Yeah. And what I've always told people, Nestor, is I've never once been promoted or gotten a raise because the Chiefs won, and I've never been demoted or gotten a pay cut because the Chiefs lost. I mean, that, as you know, we're not wrapped up in that part of it. I mean, it's nice to see the team win, but if it doesn't, it really doesn't affect our life in that way. We're not the ones who are going to be fired. But having said all that, so it's never been a big deal to me. I've been more about the stories than about the wins and the losses. But having gone through that now, I mean, it was really special. And I wouldn't have known what I had missed had I not seen that. I mean, being down in Miami all week last year for the Super Bowl and seeing the Chiefs fans around town and their just absolute joy in it's been 50 long, hard years. I mean, it was really a kind of a nice thing to see and be a part of in this community. I tell you what, the whole lead up in the playoffs, just the build up to the playoff games, and then of course the Super Bowl was a spectacular thing. Really was.
Well, when you're writing a book as you did, and I wrote Purple Rain, 1 and 2, there are moments in all those seasons. I mean, for the Ravens, it was Flacco getting annihilated the first week of December, and throwing picks and looking horrible, and firing Cam Cameron during Thanksgiving. I mean, all that happened, right? Harbaugh beating his brother, Ed Reed winning a Super Bowl in his hometown, all of these things that are part of a storyline that allow you to write a book and bring it all together. Give me the narratives of the Chiefs story. Does it start the day Andy Reid gets hired, or does it start the day they draft Mahomes, and why?
It actually starts 50 years ago, because I had a book publisher, Triumph Books, out of Chicago, and they contacted me 3 or 4 days after the Super Bowl was over. And they said, do you want to write a Chiefs book? And I said, yeah. And we talked about some of the things I wanted to do. But I also said, hey, there needs to be a fairly healthy section on the last 50 years. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl 50 years ago, because those 50 years it's been hard to be a Chiefs fan. You can't tell the story of the 2019 Chiefs without talking about how things were in the old days.
Without talking about Lynn Elliott.
Yeah, exactly. And he's in the book. And the refusal, just the absolute resolute refusal in the organization to go out and get their own quarterback to build a franchise around. And it makes you wonder, the first time the Chiefs had drafted 4 quarterbacks in the first round in their history, not in 34 years before they drafted Pat Mahomes.
Who was the quarterback? So 34 years, it would have been 84, 85? Fuller?
83. It would have been that great 83 quarterback draft with Elway, Marino, Jim Kelly.
Who did they draft?
Todd Blackledge.
I was thinking Fuller. I'm like, who? I'm just thinking names, right?
Steve Fuller was 5 or 6 years ahead of that. But even at that, the Chiefs never committed to any of those guys. They never committed to Steve Fuller. They never committed to Todd Blackledge. The other one was a guy named Pete Beathard. They never committed to him.
I think about it. I think about like DeBerg in Montana, right? I mean,
all of these guys. Think about it, Nestor.
I mean, we took Gerback, right?
All of these guys were players that were rejected by other teams. The 49ers, in a lot of cases, or other teams, didn't want these guys. Alex Smith, Trent Green, Matt Castle. I mean, these were players that were discarded by other teams, and that's who the Chiefs were trying to go to a Super Bowl. So I told them I didn't feel like we could do a book without talking about the heartaches of the last 50 years. And they were on board with that. They said, yeah, absolutely, that's a great idea. So it actually starts 50 years ago with the last Super Bowl championship. But it's mostly about the 2019 Chiefs. And it does talk about how the franchise just did a complete about-face in January 2013 when Andy Reid walked through the door.
Well, the whole story of Lamar Hunt's incredible, right? Like when I think of Lamar Hunt, I think of his passion for the World Cup. And, we're in Baltimore. We're trying to get World Cup games here in 2026, right?
Yeah.
And when I think of Lamar, it's funny that I think of that, of all the football and AFL and all that stuff. I think of his passion for World Cup. And then I saw Clark with a couple weeks ago, the Thursday night game, the home game, down on the field. And I just thought we got screwed because of the baseball team here. So we won the Super Bowl in 2013. The baseball team squatted on the parking lot, and we opened the season in Denver. And, we had a little concert down here. The Australian rock and roll guy came down and strummed the guitar with his movie star wife, and we had a couple thousand people. We didn't even have a celebration. And then I thought for the Chiefs fans, I'm like, man, they're like hanging a banner for the first time in 50 years, and nobody's allowed to go to the game. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, well, there's two things about that. First of all, that's why the Chiefs fought so hard they did have about 16,000 people at that Houston game, and that's why it was so important to them. They said, hey, we're creating memories for our fans. We want them to see this banner go up. We understand that it can't be 77,000 people, but we want at least some portion of our fan base to be able to see this. And the other thing about the Chiefs having the Thursday night game is, the Chiefs and the Royals share their complex. They can't play home games at the same time. The Royals were scheduled in the original baseball schedule, the initial 162-game schedule. The Royals were scheduled for a home game that night. And, of course, the Chiefs came to them and said, hey, listen, can we do something? So the Royals moved some things around. So
say that again. I want you to say stop. That's very, very important, because I have people in my audience that really believe the lie. Well, they still believe the lies of the president too, but they believe the lies of Peter Angelos. Say that again. The Royals moved some things around, right?
Yeah, they moved a game. They were going to play a doubleheader the day before, or I'm not sure what exactly.
That's what neighbors
do. They opened up the
right?
complex. Yeah,
that's what neighbors do.
Exactly. Well, I tell you what, if the Royals had refused to move a home game and the Chiefs had to play that game on the road,
I would take this blue shirt off, right? I would never wear blue again.
The fans would have burned down Royal Kauffman Stadium. So it was a nice gesture on the part of the Royals, but it was something that they had to do.
That didn't happen here after a Super Bowl win. Can you imagine that?
I remember that. Sure.
I mean, but that night means something, because I didn't get that night. Right, as a fan, we won the Super Bowl. We won twice, and we didn't even get a Monday night game. The league was embarrassed that Ray Lewis won, and then we went and got Gerback, right, 20 years ago. So that is, I'm going to say it's a rite of passage, because it's something new to the league, but it is something really special kicking off on Thursday night being the world champs. I mean, I think it's even more special 7 years later that we didn't get a chance to do it. And, for your team to kick it off, and where the Chiefs are and where the Ravens are, I guess in any schedule we would have looked at all this and said, poor Deshaun Watson, right? Like, because if they're both going to be 2-0, it doesn't mean good things for Deshaun Watson, right? But the fact that they are 2-0 isn't shocking to anyone, and where these organizations are. These are the two best teams in the league right now. I think all eyes have been on football for 2 weeks, but I think Monday night's going to be a special night, and I am disappointed that our stadium's going to be empty, and then my wife's not screaming at Mahomes in the first row of the upper deck.
Yeah, well, you were in the game in Houston last week. It's just not the same. It's not the same. And yes, the Chiefs did get their season opening Thursday night game, but make no mistake, it was not the same. There was not the big festive atmosphere in the parking lot that there normally would be. There was not a full crowd. I mean, the 16,000 that were there, they were making noise, but it was not like it normally is. So, the Chiefs didn't get the true experience that they would have liked to have had. No doubt about that.
Well, they'll have to beat the Ravens to do that, right? And I guess that starts on Monday. Give me a little primer on how the team's playing right now, because I was scoreboard watching from the roof. They put me on the edge of the moon up there at Reliance Stadium, and I'm looking down, and all I could see was, oh, my God, they're losing to the Chargers. What's going on? I mean, so much for the 2-0 versus 2-0, and pulled it out. And that's not unusual from what you went through last year with Deshaun Watson, right?
No, the Chiefs had to, they had to scratch this one out. I mean, make no mistake. They had to fight and claw and use everything they had, every trick they had in their books to come back against the Chargers. I mean, LA was this was their Super Bowl. They felt like they played the Chiefs two tough games last year. At least in one of them, could have won the game, had a ball bounced a certain way for them. So, it was different for the Chiefs a little bit this
Well,
year.
crazy, too, that they
They had
prepare
to
for
fight.
Tyrod Taylor, and he has
Yeah.
that thing, right?
Well, shame on them for not preparing for Justin Herbert, because Tyrod Taylor missed a day of practice last week. He had a bad rib. That's why he had to take this injection, because his rib was bothering him. So shame on the Chiefs for not preparing for Justin Herbert when they know the opposing starting quarterback had missed some time. But the Chargers love their game plan. They defensed the Chiefs about as well as you can do. They came this close. If they'd made some different – I think they should have gone for it on fourth down and overtime. I don't know if you saw that, but they punted on 4th and 1 on their opening possession, gave the Chiefs the ball back, and the Chargers never got the ball back. So I think they could have been a little more aggressive in some of their decision making. But hey, they gave the Chiefs all they wanted. I think there's a good thing. It's a good thing for the Chiefs. They get an extra day this week. I think that game took something out of them emotionally there.
Thoughts about Lamar early on for me? He's making a lot of good decisions with the football, Adam. And I don't know, what scouts saw in him 2 years ago or passing on him or what they really believed his limitation would be. But seeing the field and making good decisions with the football, it's more than a trend. I mean, it feels like it's a habit all of a sudden with him.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, I think it's a coaching thing. I think he's being coached so well in Baltimore. He's being used well and coached well. Just in talking to the Chiefs about him when he was coming out in the draft, they thought there was a lot to work with. I mean, they already had Pat Mahomes, so they weren't going to draft him. But they thought there was a lot there, and that if he was coached right, that could be a very productive NFL quarterback. So, I feel like that's what's been going on in Baltimore with him. He landed like Mahomes in Kansas City. He landed in a great spot for him up there in Baltimore.
The book is Kingdom, and you can grab it. Adam Teicher joining us here from ESPN in Kansas City, and he's not bringing me ribs. I'm not sending him crab cakes, but who knows? In the future, we should get together again and be able to do that. For your book and where Mahomes comes into this and what a special kid he is, and I covered his dad as a baseball pitcher and LaTroy Hawkins and all that stuff, and the notion that he was a good baseball player as well. Steinberg brought him around at the Super Bowl a couple years ago. He's just another guy that Steinberg brought Achilles Smith to me 20 years ago, for crying out loud, right? So, and Ben Roethlisberger after that. But in the case of Mahomes, your first impressions and then what you've seen day by day, including the contract and the champagne and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, he's an uncommonly – you don't meet many 20-some-year-olds like him. He was a different guy the moment he walked in the building. And I'm trying to have that make sense for you, but he just –
Well, we all meet a lot of 20-something guys. Every year there's a whole new class of 20-something guys as we get older, right?
But he felt like a 45-year-old guy. He felt like a guy who'd already been there and done that. And that's – sometimes you see that with guys maybe who played for national championships or played at Alabama or one of those types, Ohio State. But this guy played at Texas Tech. He had no background in this, but he just sort of got it. And it's hard to quantify that. But in the football terms, you could see the ability from his very first practice. I mean, the guy had all kinds of ability, and he was ready to play before he played. He would have done well as a rookie. I don't think it was any harm in sitting him, but the Chiefs had to make that move in trading Alex Smith at the end of that season. And he just was lights out from the moment he took his first snap. And it's been an amazing thing to witness. There have been really no growing pains, nothing like that. I mean, hadn't all been perfect, but it's been fun to watch for sure.
Well, Andy Reid was the quarterback whisperer originally, right? So if there's anybody that could identify a talent and say, I'm going to have you ride the pine behind Alex Smith because he was the number one overall and he has a beautiful football mind too, right? That part of conducting a symphony this late into this after the disappointments of Donovan McNabb and everything that happened in Philadelphia was to probably try to do it a different way this time around in Andy's mind.
I think he was enamored with Pat Mahomes' talent. There's no doubt. But I know he still cherishes his years with Donovan McNabb and Alex Smith as well.
But he didn't rush him in,
but
I guess. I mean, that's part of being comfortable with yourself, because every year you and I go to these league meetings, and there's always half the coaches and half the general managers won't be wearing the same little logo the next year. When you have some confidence to be able to say, I'm on a project here over 3 or 4 or 5 years. Not every coach gets that leeway. They say they get it on their contract, but they don't. I thought of that when Jack Del Rio wasn't opening the Vegas building the other night. When I was with him the day that Vegas got the team moved there, Yeah.
Well, no. I think Mahomes' rapid development, I think, caught the Chiefs by surprise. When they drafted him, they figured there was going to be a little bit of a more of a learning curve than there turned out to be. But they were committed to Alex Smith, and that's not Andy Reid's style unless the train is just going completely off the tracks to make a move like that in the middle of the season. So they did stick with Alex Smith, but it was not a difficult decision within the organization. They were ready to move and make their move with Pat Mahomes. There wasn't, wow, wonder if he's ready. There was a pretty good feeling that he was ready to be good. Maybe not as good as he turned out to be that season, but certainly a very productive player.
Wrinkles in the offense and bringing in waterbug running backs and, where they are and drafting around Hall of Fame talent and then trying to keep that talent together. Part of that signing guys, right? I mean, Luke comes on every week and we talk about this particular team we have here and where they are, that Lamar, Ronnie Stanley, Mark Andrews, Marlon Hunt, they have a lot of really premier players, paying them, keeping them, and then plugging holes through the draft. That feels to me like sort of the plug and play that they're doing in Kansas City right now, that they might be better this year.
Yeah. The Chiefs they haven't had a first-round draft choice for 2 years. This was their first year. 2018, 2019, they didn't have one. They needed to nail this year's draft, and early indications, very early, are that they have. They drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back from LSU. I think people maybe know about him from the Thursday night game. They drafted in the 4th round a cornerback named L'Jarius Sneed, who's from a smaller school, Louisiana Tech. Played very well the last 2 weeks, leads the NFL with 2 interceptions, but beyond that, it's just been solid on a down-to-down basis. They drafted a defensive end from Michigan by the name of Mike Dana, who has played well. So it was very important that they hit on this year's draft, given how they've tried to build this team. They're going to need to fill in all these holes since they've spent so much money. They're going to need to fill in a lot of holes with good young talent. It appears that they've done that. We'll see, how long this lasts, whether it lasts. But the early indications are that they did a nice job in the draft, and they're going to be they've gotten a number of good players out of this draft.
Adam Teicher, the book is Kingdom. He's covering all things Kingdom of the Chiefs in the Sea of Red, coming to Baltimore on Monday night in silence. You can go grab his book anywhere good books are sold on the internet. It is called Kingdom, and you can, of course, follow him out on Twitter as well. Tackling Lamar from your side, and these games have been a little bit, shoot 'em up and, getting up into the 20s and the 30s. Part of that defensively for the Chiefs, and especially when Deshaun Watson was running last year, where are they in chasing Lamar? Because I think certain defenses are better at it than other teams are.
Yeah, they did a nice job against Deshaun Watson, and I think, if you go on that game alone, maybe that's a good indication of where they are with that. They're banged up some on defense, so they're going to be down a guy or two, so we'll see how they handle that. But I just go back to the second half last year. You remember that game at Arrowhead. The Chiefs had the big halftime lead, and the Ravens come back. And, if the Chiefs don't make that play on 3rd down to keep the ball, I'm thinking if they have to punt the ball back one more time to Lamar Jackson, they're going to lose this game. So they need to make some improvements on where they were, particularly in that second half of that game last year, because they had no answer for Jackson or Baltimore's running game in that second half last year. So we'll see how that translates to this year's game.
I just felt lucky to get parked last year. I got a late start. I got there like 6 hours before the game, and I couldn't get anywhere near the stadium. So that's my thought of Kansas City, and that's why my heart broke for you guys a couple weeks ago that you didn't get to have that experience. But it won't break on Monday night. You'll be where you are. I'll be where we are. We're watching the games on TV and tweeting and talking about this, and I do hope we can get together an elbow bump the next time these teams get together, which I hope is in January, either your place with barbecue or my place with Faithley's crab cakes. How about that?
Either one is a good deal for me.
Well, be some good football either way. Always good to have you on. Thanks for making time, Adam. Appreciate you.
Hey, anytime.
Adam Teicher joining us here from ESPN, the worldwide leader in Kansas City, Missouri, and parts of Kansas as well. Monday night, they'll be coming in. We'll be watching football. Luke will be in Owings Mills between now and then. We are merging the brands of WNST.net and Baltimore Positive. Sometime this weekend, you'll start to see some things change if you log on to either of those places. Now, 300 conversations deep with my partner Don Moeller at Baltimore Positive, and building a new place to house all of it, including our Ravens coverage before and after Monday night's game against the Chiefs. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and anywhere the internet travels. We are WNST.net, AM 1570. Taos of Baltimore, we never stop talking. Baltimore Positive.